When you say, see your elephant, what are you referring to there?
Essentially, your elephant is our blind spots. It's the things that we're pushing away, the things we're choosing to ignore. I also talk about your elephant being your BS. I won't swear on the podcast, but like the BS, the stuff we're just ignoring, choosing not to deal with. And sometimes we think we're putting it away to deal with later, but it's still impacting our performance in real time.
This desire to be great, to achieve something, to reach our potential, where do you think that comes from?
Obviously, fight or flight is a biological part of how we have survived for so long as humans. And I think that greatness is almost part of that fight. And some people, I think they don't have it in them. So I've talked to some people and they said, look, Joe, I'm okay with mediocre, but it's only because they've found themselves building this, comfort zone around themselves, and they almost barricade themselves in, and they can function really, really well in that comfort zone and take really, good instructions and follow the rules and do really well. But they're never really going to achieve the best that they possibly can, that true potential that I talk about.
And some people even push that away, I think. The idea of being great, of getting to that, I think like some people kind of want to probably quieten that down a little bit.
100%. And oh my God, let me stand on my soapbox on this one, because this is a real problem in Australia and New Zealand. And I travel a lot for work. I've had a lot of experience working in the last few years, particularly in the US and in Jamaica and other parts of the world. And what I realized when I come back to Australia is that we are so bad at bringing people down rather than lifting them up and celebrating success. So tall poppy syndrome is real. And when you step outside of Australia, and it's the same in New Zealand, when I step out of it and come back into that reality, it's a real problem in our society. And I know in New Zealand, there's now programs in schools actually teaching kids it's okay to try hard and it's okay to want more than mediocre. And we've almost got set in this pattern. It's okay to be mediocre, and success isn't celebrated in the same way, and people would rather pull others down that are trying to succeed rather than help lift them up. And if the one thing people get out of this book is by them being great, they actually lift other people up and make other people better in the world as well.
And I'm so glad you have shared something with the world, in this form, because not all of us, of course, are going to be these high performance athletes that you work with. In the life of, the everyday person, are there certain things that seem to repeat in terms of what is holding us back from even, going for that next job or pursuing that relationship or whatever it might be? What are the themes you see occurring?
One theme that I see occurring is there's certain human traits that I believe help us hunt our elephant, so to speak, or deal with our blind spots. And I talk about these 4 elephant hunting tools that we all have inside of us, but we need to generate them to really see our elephant and deal with our blind spot. And those 4 things are the courage, so the willingness to go above and beyond and deal with it there. The curiosity to find out what next, which is the engine of learning, which most people I still think have, and social media has done a great job of encouraging our access to information, is encouraging curiosity. But the 2 other elephant hunting tools that are really important that in today's society, I think have been almost been tried to dampen down, like I said before, is vulnerability and authenticity too. In being the person we need to all be on social media and look at me, and this is what I do on the weekend, look at my beautiful family and look at this beautiful car or house or whatever it is, look how great my life is, we're not being truly authentic. And we're shying away from being vulnerable as well. And vulnerability creates this blank canvas, for learning. And I think that's a really big part of why a lot of people in today's society, and I'm seeing this in athletes and business and schooling, aren't realizing their true potential, and absolutely breaks my heart. So this book is quite a passion piece for me. It was written based on life experience and what I'd seen people not realizing their potential.
What is the point of becoming great, of achieving something? Is it simply that happiness is on the other side of it? Is that there's a sense of like accomplishment that's on the other side of it? What would your pitch for greatness and achieving it be?
People talk about self-actualization, and to me, that's realizing your true potential. So there's balance of neurochemicals that happen in the brain when we reach that actualization when we feel that sense of greatness. And I feel like not everyone is necessarily driven towards it, but they're still going to get that same feeling when they realize it. So someone that's quite happy in their comfort zone, they are still going to get a sense of reward by expanding their comfort zone. So from those people, rather than like pushing them to like, what is your greatness, blah, 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 like, hey, do you want a little bit more? Do you want to have a little taste? And then just instead of breaking down their walls of their barricade of their comfort zone, but just stretch it out a little bit, or just, open the door slightly. And then it's amazing what then that curiosity drives in terms of what they now want. And when they can see that little bit of an inkling and opening.
Does ego ever get in the way here? Because surely there's an athlete, there's that top tier tennis player that if you were going to say, oh, you really need to work on your backswing or whatever it might be, does ego ever prevent them from embracing that learning? As I can imagine, they could easily say, I've been doing this for years, I know everything, etc. What's the role of ego in this discussion?
I've had lots of very controversial conversations about ego. So to be great, you got to have a little bit of ego. But like everything, you got to keep it in check. It's got to be modulated. So if you don't have belief in yourself and you don't have confidence in yourself, you're never going to achieve your true potential. One of the elephants is ignorance, which essentially talks about confidence. And there's two faces of it. So you can be on the low side or you can be on the high side, but either of them are going to essentially ignorance. So you're not realizing that your competition is rising and they're up beside you and really challenging you, or you're underestimating your competition, or you're so lacking confidence that you can't actually bring your best performance in the moment. So people ask me a lot about Noah Lyles and like, is he an egomaniac and he seems so confident, all those kind of things. But he is an athlete that is confident because he knows he's done the work. He literally hires people like me to seek elephants for him. He looks under every rock, asks every question. What else? What more? Is there anything else that we haven't been working on that I can fix to deliver my best performance? So he can show up to whatever race that he goes to knowing that he's done everything in his power to execute his best performance in that moment. And not many people can do that. There's no ego there. That's a knowing. But he wouldn't have got to that point if he didn't have a certain amount of confidence and a certain willingness to do whatever it takes. And doing that, whatever that takes, can be seen as ego, can be seen as arrogant, but it's actually just performing at the highest level.
Yeah, and I suppose then for us regular folk, if you want to call it that, us non-athletes, maybe the way to take that principle into our lives is it to have those close friends, those family members, those people who we're willing to call us out on stuff. Like if we're doing something, if we've got a habit at work that we seem to keep whinging about, having that friend who's going to go, I think you just need to have this conversation. I think maybe it's this personality trait that's your stumbling block there. Like, is that how we would apply this on our individual level?
That's definitely one way you can do it. I think it's two-pronged. I think the journey needs to be driven by the individual themselves and the willingness, and the vulnerability and the choosing to seek that elephant and that willingness to level up in terms of your self-awareness. Because essentially, the more self-aware you are, the more likely you are to see your elephant. The seekers are far more self-aware than the avoidant hunters. It sits on a spectrum. If we can continually work on our self-awareness, both internally and externally within ourselves and within our relationships, is really going to impact how likely we are to, one, see our blind spots that make a difference in terms of intervention and changing in the outcome. So I think that's definitely a huge part of it.